Welcome to the Business Sense with Brad podcast. Before we start, I'm promoting two items. The first is my new website, businesssensejc.com. That's businesssensejc.com. That's home to my new consulting business located in Johnson City, Tennessee. If your small or medium-sized business or nonprofit needs help either crafting strategy, implementing total quality management, or the related statistics, or if you need help improving employee engagement, please reach out via the website. And speaking of employee engagement, as you are all aware, I've written The Motivated Worker. It's available on Amazon or McFarland.com. So welcome to the podcast, Rhonda. And before we really dive in here, can you give us a little bit about your backstory, kind of, where are you coming from? And then how does that lead into the Isaiah 117 house?
Yeah, my background is not in nonprofit. It is not in foster care. My background is Milligan University. I went there as an undergrad. I went there for my graduate degree. I worked there as a cheer and dance coach and in the anatomy department. I worked in the cadaver lab. I tell people, most people don't go to the cadaver lab and then pick up pom-poms, but that was me. Never saw myself doing this kind of work. Really thought I would stay at Milligan my whole life so my kids could go to college for free. But in 2014, my husband and I felt very much led. Well, I felt led, he not so much, to take classes to become foster parents. And I kind of tricked him in the first one, told him we're going on a date. You should know your man before you do that. We've been together 25 years. He was not happy, but he didn't say he wouldn't go back. And so we went through an 8-week study of the foster care system and, just learning that before you're in that world, when you're outside and you just hear about foster care, you hear about a child being removed and you think, well, good. I mean, that's a good thing. They're going to be safe and come to school every day next week. I mean, yay, removal day. But when you start seeing the inner workings of the child welfare system and you start learning about removal day and you start seeing it from the eyes of a child, you realize there's nothing to celebrate. And I remember we were sitting in a conference room in Johnson City, Tennessee at the Department of Children's Services in 2014. And they said that a little girl had slept in that room the night before. And I was like, I don't understand what you're saying. And they said, well, when a child is removed from their home, there's this gap, they don't know where the child is going. They can't tell the child where they're going. The child's hungry. The child's tired. The child's dirty. The child has nothing except what's in a black trash bag. And they have to go back to a state office like we were sitting in that night and wait. And sometimes it's hours, sometimes it's days, sometimes it's weeks. And I was sitting in this conference room, just couldn't even understand what I was hearing. So a child is going through the hardest day of their life and you're taking them to an office, like that's the plan. And I remember sitting in that conference room and I got so mad. I was crying, but I was so mad. And I was mad at God and I started to yell at him in my mind. And I was like, this isn't fair. Like that little girl on that conference room floor, she's yours. Like, how could you let that happen to her? And who's going to help her? Who's going to tell her that she's loved and that there's hope and that she's going to be okay? And like, how could this be? And sitting in a conference room in 2014, I heard God say, these are my children. What are you going to do? And at that time, I thought, what am I going to do? I'm a cheer and dance coach. Like, you got the wrong girl. Like, what am I going to do? Nothing. No, and I told him no. And we finished our classes 2014, said yes to our first foster placement in 2015, little boy named Isaiah. He came with a roach infested diaper bag and an outfit that was too small. And there I was again, facing removal day, facing the reality of removal day. And living that foster care journey and hearing other removal day stories and understanding that this is the plan in Tennessee and Texas and Michigan and Florida, like this is the plan. By January of 2017, I tell people I couldn't tell God no anymore. And that was the beginning of Isaiah 117 House. And that's how we got here, by living it.
All right. Well, yeah, that's a powerful story. Can you tell us a little bit more about what Isaiah House looks like then, as far as the process and how that goes and how you step in? Like, what does that look like?
Absolutely. So what happens is when a child is being removed from their home for their safety, normally that child goes back to the state office. But if an Isaiah 117 house is present, they call the home, ask permission to bring the child there. We immediately send out volunteers to meet that child at the home, call them by name, welcome them into the home, and then we provide for every immediate need they have. So you need new clothes, you need new backpack, you need new shoes, new pants, new shirt, you need a bath, you need a shower, you're hungry, we got to fully stock the kitchen, you want to play outside, you want to shoot basketball, you want to read a story, you want to watch TV, like whatever they need, we make sure that we meet those needs until placement is found. And the term that we like to use is we lavishly love. So any way that we can lavishly love on that child on removal day, that's what we exist to do.
All right, amazing. And I'm probably jumping ahead here on the question list. I don't know if you have one, but it seems like, so as far as like and I hate to say scaling this, because I think there's a disconnect between when people think nonprofit, they think, oh, so it's, totally volunteer and you don't, it's like, well, no, it's like I'm sure there's volunteers, but there's also paid staff. You have to run it like a business to keep the lights on. Now, of course, your focus isn't on perhaps increasing the profit margin, but other than that, it pretty much runs like a business. And it's harder, I would say, as a nonprofit, because especially fundraising, you're competing against every nonprofit in the world when someone's trying to donate. So, but on the business side, as this continues to grow and expand, what challenges, or how are you making sure that Isaiah House looks the same as you go from, state to state? And I'm not even sure all of the states that you're in, but how are you kind of managing that, the growth of it?
Yeah. I mean, this whole thing has been crazy. I mean, in June of 2018, we opened our first home in Carter County, Tennessee. And I thought that was the plan. Like, I thought we were opening a home in Carter County. I quit my job at Milligan to run the one home in Carter County. And I tell people all the time, I know God was just laughing at me, like, love her. She thinks there's going to be one home. That's so cute. But currently, we have 15 open homes. We'll open number 16 the end of this month, number 17 next month. We have 17 other locations in the construction process. We have a total of 49 locations in 10 states. And we have a waiting list of about 50. It's insane. I tell people all the time, like, that is a testament to how big my God is and how big this problem is. Like, it is needed everywhere. But for somebody like me that has never been business minded, when I went to Milligan in 1993, this is what old people do. They tell stories. In 1993, my dad called me on a phone that rang in my dorm room and said, "Rhonda, stop writing checks." And I was like, "Why?" He's like, "You don't have any money." I was like, "But I still have checks." I mean, this is who you're dealing with. And so all of a sudden there's money coming in like crazy. The growth is astronomical. The governor steps up and says he wants one in every county in the state of Tennessee. Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs puts us on his show. 2 million people watch it. And suddenly 41 states and 4 countries have reached out. And I know nothing. I always say that if God's going to have the glory, then he puts someone totally ill-equipped in charge. And that's how I got my job. So I have prayed continually that God would surround me with the right people. And almost immediately 3, not 1, not 2, 3 CPAs said they'd like to help me. And I was like, God knew I was going to need help. We have had to learn a lot. How do we keep it the same? That was one of our fears, is that there would be an Isaiah 117 house out there somewhere in Texas, which we have, an open home in Texas and others under construction. How would we know what they are doing is Isaiah? Because we have 3 non-negotiables: how we treat children, the way we handle our finances, and how we present our home to the public. And so how do we know that children are being treated correctly, the finances are being handled correctly, and that we're presenting our home well. And so we do have to hire, and we have to hire really good people that we fly in from Texas and train them in our, what we call our red door culture. And then they go back to Texas and they make sure that our employees in Texas are living out that red door culture. You know, I mean, it has been a huge learning curve. But God has provided some of the most amazing people. But basically, we have a home office here in Elizabethton. We got about 11 people here. And then we have regional coordinators and state directors that are in charge of making sure the culture is being lived out. And then every location has a program coordinator that then oversees the volunteers for that location. And we have about 40 to 50 volunteers per location. And you brought up, you know, finances. To date, all of our money has come in private foundations, churches, and individuals. And what's really cool about that is we do not open our doors unless we are debt free with a fully funded first year's budget. And so all 15, next week 16, next month 17 homes will open debt free with a fully funded first year's budget. And every home under construction is currently debt free and will open their doors with a fully funded first year's budget. I mean, I felt like God whispered to me early on, I don't want you to worry about the money. I don't want you to have a scarcity mentality. I'll take care of the money. You just go lavishly love on kiddos. And so we don't set a number like you can only spend this much per kid, or like we meet whatever the needs are for that child. And we don't worry about the money.
Well, that's amazing. And it's also, you know, a testament to leadership capacity, because you don't have to have every skill. Like you don't have to have yourself a CPA or something. It's more about vision. And of course, in your case, here with the faith and the belief, and you've got to, and I'm sure it's not, easy at times, I'm sure if you're like me, you kind of go up and down on like, oh, wow, things are hitting, like this is meant to be. And then the next day it's like, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I don't know if you go through those cycles. I do that in my personal life. I don't know if you go through those. And of course, leadership is being able to see the vision through all of that. And then of course, surrounding yourself with the right people. So that was interesting.
No, I definitely go through that. I'm currently covered in a rash from head to toe. And the only explanation you may come up with is my stress level. Only I don't feel stressed. You see, like I'm sitting here, I don't feel stressed, but my body is saying, yeah, you are. So I do believe that God is doing this. I'm not, but as someone who never wanted to be an executive director of anything, and found myself here, reminding myself all the time that I don't have to be able to do it all. I don't have to, I have to trust God and surround myself with really, really good people.
All right. And before we move on, I want to talk about this Mike Rowe episode because I watched that back when it came out. And I guess, how did that actually come about, and what was the show, and what was that like for you going through that? Because I think, I'm sure being followed around by cameras and all of that would have been quite a experience.
It still today is one of the biggest surprises of my life. So the whole premise of the show is the person doesn't know it's going to happen. And I did not know it was going to happen. So there was the secretary for the Department of Children's Services in Johnson City had nominated me 8 times. I did not know that. I didn't even know about the show. I didn't know who Mike Rowe was when he walked in. I just knew I was supposed to. And so I was told that a small documentary company was coming to film us. They wanted to film about foster care. I'd been on a couple of Zoom calls with this small documentary company. Their website looked totally sketch because it was fake. I don't know. I even sent the document that I had to sign to our lawyer and said, this looks sketch. Like, can I sign this? And he was like, they're not asking for money. If they show up and you don't feel good about it, tell them no. Like, there's nothing binding here. So I signed it and sent it back. So the morning that the small documentary company was supposed to come, there was a bunch of us gathered at the Carter County House because they wanted to talk to foster moms and people within the organization. So we're all there. And I was like, listen, guys, I don't do details. So I don't know who these people are. I don't know what they're about to ask, but there are 2 rules. Number 1, we do not say one negative word about the Department of Children's Services, period. And everybody's like, I was like, and number 2, if somebody asks you to take your clothes off, you say no, because it's not that kind of video. I don't know who these people are. That's all I knew. That was literally it. And so all of a sudden the door opens up and we are literally, there are 6 to 10 mic, camera, crew guys all over the house. They're dropping boom mics. They pull my shirt out and drop a microphone. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, there's microphones going everywhere. But I'm still, because I don't do details, I'm like, well, I mean, I guess small documentary companies do this kind of, there's lights going up. And then I'm sitting at the table and Mike Rowe walks in. And like I said, I couldn't even process who he was. Like, I just knew I was supposed to know him. And I looked at my friend and I whispered, is that the guy from Tim the Toolman Taylor? And she was like, that's not a show. And you're mic'd. So everyone just heard that. Like, I had no idea who it was. But and I still didn't understand what was about to happen to our ministry because of it. He was a really cool guy, super down to earth, super smart, super funny, truly seemed to care about our mission and what we were trying to do. I remember we went out to get in my van and there were drones flying overhead and all of a sudden there were cameras all in my van. There was a van in front of us with cameras. And I looked at him and I said, I really don't want my butt on the air. And he said, well, there's cameras everywhere, honey. And so we just got in the car, but it was such a cool experience. The phone started ringing the day after that episode. And literally we got out a map and started coloring in states that had called. And within a week, 41 states had reached out wanting an Isaiah 1 house. I mean, what that show did for us and for so many others is really unbelievable.
Amazing. Yeah. And I think that was like 2017 or so.
No, it was actually March 9th. I'll never forget this. March 9th. They came in January of 2020. Our episode aired March 9th of 2020. The world shut down March 13th of 2020. And we spent the rest of 2020 trying to figure out how we were going to take this to 41 states. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. For some reason I saw 2017 somewhere, but so that's right as COVID's hitting. That's wild, especially it's like, how can you grow when everyone's shut down? And of course the needs are, and that was actually tying into my next thing here on the economics of it all, because since that show, the economy has, been all over the place for many different reasons from inflation to, what was happening during COVID. So has it been challenging economic wise? Like, are you seeing anything different from when he came on, or is it, I mean, obviously the need's still there, but is the needs increased? I guess, have you seen anything on that side?
2020, like for everybody else, was a very scary time because we didn't know. We couldn't do all of our fundraisers are typically luncheons in person with 400 people in the room telling the story. We couldn't do any of that. We couldn't speak to churches, which is another huge way that we get awareness and people to support us. And we were scared. More money came in 2020 than had ever come in before. And that has continued to be the trend. Praise the Lord, because although the money has increased in conjunction with the fact that the need has increased for sure. There are more children in custody in every state that we're in than they've ever had. There are more children without placement to go to within the first 24 hours than we've ever seen. Texas has them in hotels. Florida's tried all kinds of different things. I mean, like, there is a need that we have not seen in child welfare ever. We've got a lady on our board that worked for the department for 38 years. And she will cry talking about 2021 and 2022, just how hard it has been. And so it's like God had this perfect storm that he was growing. And we have, started to open homes at really a critical time in child welfare.
Yeah. And right now you're going into, or it looks like in Emily Olmstead, I'm going to tell her I'm giving her a shout out on here.
Right.
So you're looking at possibly opening one in Battle Creek, or I don't know the whole story with that. And that, of course, that's close to my heart because I moved from, Battle Creek to Johnson City in 2016. So I lived in Battle Creek for about 10 years. So what's the story with that location specifically? Like, how's that going, or what needs to happen for that to open?
So yes, shout out to Emily. Funny story about Michigan. We've joked that we had told Michigan no twice and that Emily was their last hope. And if, 3 strikes, you're out. And Emily saved Michigan. But it's honestly, we were just never, other people had reached out to us from Michigan, but we were not in a place to extend ourselves that far yet. And Emily's come along at a time that we're already just an hour and a half south of her at a place in Indiana. So we were ready. And so, but she is also one of the most perfect people to lead this expansion. Battle Creek has potential land right now. So we could say a prayer that land works out, a potential land donation. They're currently in their awareness phase, which means they're letting everybody in Battle Creek know about the need. And they'll have a fundraiser coming up this fall. And we'll try to raise the funds to make this dream a reality. And then hopefully beginning of next year, start building. So that's where we are in Battle Creek.
All right, amazing. And that kind of ties into the fundraising side a little bit more. Like, for how can people get involved? Again, this Battle Creek is just one expansion. I know you're going into other areas. What's the best way for people to get involved? And are there different ways for people to get involved?
Oh, yes. I mean, there's so many ways. But I think the easiest thing to tell you is if you go to our website, Isaiah117house.com, you can look up what states are we in, what cities are we in, find out if there's an Isaiah house near you for starters. And that Isaiah house needs you. They need you as a volunteer. They need you as a monthly donor. They need you as someone that'd be willing to help out with basic chores around the house. I mean, you are needed. So I would go to our website, find an Isaiah house near you, and reach out to that house, which you can also do through our website. If you go to our website and you don't see a location near you, and you feel burdened for your community, you can hit contact. And one of the options is, I'd like to learn more about starting a home in my community. So you can choose that as well. And then another thing that you can do is you can make a donation just to the general fund. And that goes, for monies that we can use where most needed. So that's an option on our website as well.
All right. So where did Isaiah 117 come from?
Really, there's two places. And the reason I say that is our very first foster placement was a 9-month-old little boy named Isaiah. And we credit him with truly opening our eyes to a world we did not know existed. And because he came into our home, and because I always tell people, if you have a new baby in your home for the first time in 9 years, our other two children were 12 and 9, and your husband is only kind of on board, you need Jesus. And so I said, we should read through the book of Isaiah. That would be fitting. And then we found Isaiah 117. And basically that verse says, do good, seek justice, take care of the widow, take care of the orphan. But I've always wanted to look at verses in context. Like, who is God speaking to? What's going on? Why was that said? And if you look at Isaiah 117, God is speaking to his people. And if you look what comes before it, he says, you think I want what you're currently doing? Like, you think I want these new moon festivals and these sacrifices? No. They're making me sick to my stomach. What I want from my people is for you to do good and seek justice and take care of the widow and take care of the orphan. And so Isaiah 117 just became a family verse in 2015. And then as this dream kept stirring, what if there was a home? What if there was a home? No more cubicles, no more conference room. What if there was a home? It just became clear to us that it needed to be the Isaiah 117 house. Side note, we ended up adopting Isaiah. He is 8 years old now, and he calls himself the Isaiah when asked about Isaiah 117 house. And that was my alarm. You might need to edit that out. A really sweet story. A little boy in his class actually visited one of our homes and came in the next day in new shoes, a new shirt, new pants, and said he got to eat his favorite meal the night before and couldn't believe how fun the house was. And he walked up, Isaiah's teacher was watching, and he walked up and he said, I was in a house last night with your name and your picture in it. And Isaiah said, well, that's because I'm the Isaiah. And they hugged right there in the classroom.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. A powerful story. You're pulling all the heartstrings. So I'm like, I don't want to go back on the business side, but we talked about how you're growing it, but is there I almost think of it like a franchising model or something, but like, I guess, could you talk just a little bit more on how, I mean, because obviously you're training people when you're growing and sending them, but does it work kind of like a franchise? Do you have like a playbook they have to go by? Like, how does it work?
Yeah, it's definitely a franchise-esque model. I don't know all the terminology and that we fit perfectly, but I will say this: we are one 501(c)(3). So we got one 990, one EIN, one organization. And so every single location is a chapter of that one location. And they know before they ever take this on, they come to visit, we go through all of our culture, we go through the way we do things. We do things a certain way. And if you don't want to do them that way, that's okay. Like, we will tell you what we've done, go do your own thing. But if you want to do an Isaiah 117 house, this is the way we do it. This is the color we paint the house. This is the language we use. This is how we train our volunteers. I mean, everything is detailed out. So they very much are becoming part of the Isaiah 117 house family, and this is how we do it. We do trainings throughout the year. We do a conference every year where we bring everybody together and talk about what we call as our red door culture. And so we strive to communicate culture well and keep culture growing well within our organization. We want, if you visit an Isaiah house in Johnson City, Tennessee, or Waco, Texas, or Lynchburg, Virginia, or Baker County, Florida, it's going to feel the same. And that's what we're working really hard to make sure happens. I think one of the secret sauce type moments is every person only supports 6 to 8 people. So if you're a support person, you only have 6 to 8 people that you support, because we want to make sure you can support them well. You're meeting with them monthly, face to face. You're meeting with them on Zoom. You're meeting with them as groups, every other month or so. Like, we want it to be a very personal connection, because our motto is love, you're not alone. We always say we want that child to know they're not alone. We want that caseworker or that future placement. But then we also want to let our people know that they're not alone. And so we want to make sure that we support our people well.
Thanks again, Rhonda, for coming on and talking about Isaiah House. And we look forward to seeing what you do in the future.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. I always love talking to somebody from Milligan. And one thing I forgot to mention, we do have a book coming out on July 17th. It'll launch on July 17th on Amazon. It's called He's Inviting Us In, the story of Isaiah 117 house. So if you've listened to this today and your interest has been piqued, go on Amazon and get our book and hear the whole story.
All right. Amazing. Thanks again.